Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are based, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay their respect to their elders past and present.
Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of EWB UNSW's Inspire Series podcast for 2023. My name is Arvind, EWB's Partnership Coordinator, and I'm currently studying Mechatronics Engineering and Computer Science. Alongside me is Winnie, my co-host.
Hello, I'm Winnie, EWB's Partnerships Director, and I study Software Engineering at UNSW.
Today, we're joined by our special guest, Dr. Richard Corkish, who is the COO of Australian Centre for Advanced Photovoltaics and the founder of UNSW ERV. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Arthur and Winnie. I am indeed the COO of the Australian Centre for Advanced Photovoltaics, but I'm speaking today just as a UNSW academic. I'm a senior lecturer here at the School of Photovoltaic and Renewable Energy Engineering, which is where that centre is headquartered. And I've been here since I came. I think my student number, the staff numbers, student numbers used to be based on the year you started, and one's a 90. I was here at 90. I came as a PhD student after doing some other things out in the world, and apart from a small gap, I've sort of been here since as a staff member.
Awesome. That's very cool. Yeah. And yeah, knowing you as one of the academics as UNSW, I remember seeing you in with the other humanitarian engineering academics as well. So I know you have a big background in that as well. Yeah. But I guess to start us off, I wanted to ask you a bit more about your journey in terms of how you got to the place you are at the moment. So I guess many students in high school or even like the early years of uni ask themselves what career path they really want to pursue. So I wonder when and what made you kind of choose your career path, and were you always set on this decision?
I don't think I was always set on this decision. I was lots of different ways I was thinking of going at different stages of life, but I was the first person in my family to get a bachelor degree, a university degree at all. So this I didn't have very immediate and close models for what to do about that and where to go and to be brave about that. So I didn't actually go into university straight from school. I went into a technical training program in the Electricity Commission of Victoria, which I think it's being brought back into existence now after a period where it didn't exist. The SEC, and worked in the radio section, and they put me through technical training, what today would be called TAFE training, I guess, for technician training, which has stood me in great stead. I learned lots of very useful things there about how to do things, how to build things, and how things worked. Which when I left there and did go to do Bachelor of Communication Engineering at RMIT, then it really gave me a really good head start. And so it was called communication engineering, but it was electronics. I was learning to be an electronics engineer, really, but with a focus on radio and digital analog and digital communication, electronic engineering. And after that, I went as a trainee to the CSIRO. So I was sort of interested in cutting edge sort of stuff, and research was pretty interesting all along, and what might be able to be happening in the future. And I worked at the CSIRO division of radio physics for I think 4 or 5 years, I think, which was really very exciting. That was based in Marsfield in Sydney. I was on the same campus as the Anglo-Australian observatories, who were mixing it with radio astronomers who are discovering new galaxies and all that wild stuff, doing the very basic physics and really cutting edge equipment to do that, and running radio telescopes, but also working with the communications for Australia's first satellites, the OSAT satellites that were Australia's first foray into space, I guess. And that was very technically interesting. It was very exciting, but it was sort of a bit. It was all a bit close to the military for my liking, to be honest. There was, that whole space side of things is and remains, very military oriented. All the money is in military stuff, and that's the big customers that the suppliers want. So, and I wasn't entirely comfortable in that space, to be honest. So I learnt. I was reading and watching and observing the media and saw the outstanding success that Professor Martin Green and his colleagues were achieving here with solar technology at UNSW. I dabbled in an interest in renewable energy and things, but not really doing anything, but just reading about it and being excited about the idea of it for a long time, but not really involved in it. And this looked like a good chance to bring that together with the technical interest and the social interest, and having the sort of things that you guys at EWB are obviously interested in is the development potential for technologies and how engineers can help the people who have a whole lot less than we in Sydney do, and how we can hopefully make their lives better. So the solar technology was cutting edge science and technology and very exciting, but it was also linked into that other side of the brain, I guess, or the other side of personality and interest as well. So it was a very, very good match for me.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize, you had such a deep background in the very industrial technical side of things as well. And was it very hard to transition into then the solar kind of area? And I guess was the main decision to do that very propelled on your personal values of wanting to do something with a positive impact?
It was primarily, and just bringing together the technical interest and the social interests, I think. And but I was very, very fortunate. My wife was working and was happy for us to lose my income while I came here as a student and did a PhD under Martin Green's supervision, and then after that I did leave the uni for a little while, and I went up to north of New South Wales and worked at Nimbin in the Rainbow Power Company, which was then very small company. Well, I guess it's still pretty small, but much bigger than it was then. Which was a company that had come out of the hippies that had moved to that area back in the 1970s, and they'd established a retail and manufacturing business for making off-grid solar power systems and things. And the solar market now has moved really away from that, and it's much more focused on grid connected and really replacing coal and gas and oil powered delivery with renewables on massive scale. So, but that same sort of technology that permitted people to live in little dwellings in the bush in far north of New South Wales, away from everything, running with solar or hydropower, wind perhaps sometimes, is really this pretty much the same sort of technology that we're now trying to bring to Vanuatu in similar circumstances. It's not very different, really. It's same. So very good learning for that.
Yeah, that works out well.
And that need in the world hasn't gone away. While the industry sort of turned our focus to the big game, I guess, the big game of powering the whole world. But there's sort of those parts of the world that we focused on in the 1970s, 1980s. They're still there. They're still there, and it's the numbers of people who are without basic electricity services in remote areas in the world is still very high. And even with all the efforts of the United Nations Development Program goals, so it's still a long way to go. And those technologies and methods that we were playing with back then, that the Rainbow Power Company was pioneering in New South Wales, in Australia at that time, back in the early 80s. It's it's still important, and it's a good grounding for introducing students to it as well now.
Definitely. Speaking of Vanuatu, as we know, you are the founder of UNSW Earth. Did you want to talk a bit about that and what you guys exactly do?
Yeah, so when in engineering at UNSW, which I'm sure you both know, we have a requirement that we do a thesis project in the bachelor program and also in the the postgraduate coursework programs as well, the Master of Engineering Science programs, where students do a 3-term project that is sort of a capstone project, bringing things together, putting stuff together, and it's a design project. And I guess in different varieties of engineering, it's done, they can be quite different from each other. And even within our small school, they can be quite different from each other. So they could be working in a lab, but they could be doing computer modeling, or they could be designing a standalone power system for a little medical clinic in the middle of the Pacific. So it'd be a huge opportunity for different things to be included in that. So ideally in those, we have something where the student can actually, check it out, investigate it, do a design, build it, test it, make it work, and install it. So for my projects, this is quite hard because that needs multiple visits to the site, and this is just beyond us, really. So they can be a little bit less cohesive, I guess, these projects, but still very, very excellent learning. And when the students do get to travel, it's not required that the students travel, but it's a great experience if it's feasible for them. And we've had in the last few years, at least for Australian citizen students and permanent residents, there's been possibility of having DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade's support through the New Colombo Plan support for the students to travel. So we've been successful in doing that and getting that funding in the last few years. Actually, just before the COVID shutdowns closed the borders, which was not a good time to win your first funding, but they were so it's been a bit crazy over the last few years, but we're getting it together again. But so when our school needs to offer projects to all the students, and I guess I identified a gap where there was a lot of interest in humanitarian sort of engineering and those sort of issues, but most of our projects were actually in the lab designing better solar cells. And of course, that does link into the other, but it's sort of not very directly linked. I guess it's a bit of a long path between those things. There's definitely a very strong path, but it's quite long, and they don't see all of it really, and it's a bit distant from what they thought they'd be doing sometimes. So So that's something that appeals to me as well. And there was a project that the late Professor Stuart Wenham, who was one of the founders of our school here, when we began our school, we sort of split away from electrical engineering here at UNSW in 1999, 2000, and we started the world's first photovoltaics degree program, bachelor program here in the year 2000. And Stuart Wenham is one of the people who led that. He identified that there was, this need. It was very appealing to students. It's great marketing as well. And he set up some projects with a group in Nicaragua in Central America, and which was a program where it was really set up to take Peace Corps volunteers from the United States into communities in the north, through the Engineering University in Managua, into communities in villages in the north of the country. And he got involved, and other academics here got involved, and I got involved. There were similar other projects. Had one project that our head of school led, a person who's now our head of school led into Sri Lanka as well. The Nicaragua project was outstanding. It was really, really good. It was we could just slot our students in where the Peace Corps volunteers would have been, and it worked very, very nicely. They were very organised. They had to look after us, and it was great. But it's so far away. It's just in another hemisphere. It costs a fortune to get there. Costs a fortune to get back, and the time. So much of your resources just goes into just getting there and back. And it's exhausting. It's a really long way. So I started looking for other places closer to home, and sort of made a few false starts, but eventually a colleague here in the media department of UNSW that did a lot of media for our school as well, and she had spent 6 months living on the island of Tanna, in the middle of the island, very high up, and making films about the people there. And there's people who live in the custom way. They live in the very old traditional way. They don't go to school. They don't go to church. They don't go to hospital. They live in the way their ancestors lived, and they still want to do that. They still do, but they're very much encroached on. There's a shrinking community, I'm afraid, and I guess they probably feel under a fair bit of pressure of encroachment, I guess. So I actually visited there, and she actually got married in that community. And my students and I, on a project from 2 valleys away, I think we walked across in the upper ridge and down into a deep canyon, and then up and over again, and all guided. We would have definitely got lost by ourselves, and we attended the wedding in a traditional local wedding with dancing all night and pigs being killed, and it was quite wild and eye-opening. And so I don't do projects in those areas, so I leave those people alone. They want to be left alone, that's fine. But much of the island has been, I guess, affected by missionaries and by Western society, and they do have schools, and they do have churches, and they do wear clothes, and they want the sort of services that we have, or at least some of those anyway. So they want lights when a baby's being born. They want some light. They they want clean, reliable water supplies, and they want their kids to be able to study, particularly the high school children to be able to study in the evenings. So electrical lighting is important to them for most of the people, but not in that custom area in the middle where we just leave it alone. I'm rambling a bit. I've forgotten the question.
No, that was really interesting though. Like I can kind of understand, what inspires you to, go out to, go into those solutions and like, figure out a way to support the local people there, as well as like having that cultural like sensitivity as well to certain groups as well. No, but I think you gave it a good like. The original question was like to understand a bit more on what you guys do, and I think
Okay, I think we sort of did it. So the sort of projects that we do, and actually I was just before we started the podcast, I was just talking to a student who will probably join me in 2014, so it's fresh in my mind. So I was just telling him. So we do lighting in community facilities, solar powered, battery-based lighting off grid, and they're particularly health facilities or health related. So when we say health centre or clinic, often what we're talking about is a shed that might or might not have a concrete floor, and that probably has very, very little else, a table and a chair, no trained nurse or doctor, but a community member who sort of takes on that responsibility and looks after the that first base where people come when they're sick or injured or ready for childbirth. And we add lights, and we add phone charging option as well from small solar and battery-based systems, usually lead-acid battery-based systems. This is quite old technology, but there's reasons we still choose to do that. And water supply is of increasing interest to communities, so solar-powered pumping. Sometimes we always look for opportunities where we can avoid using solar-powered pumping and use gravity instead, and we're just looking at students. I just got his thesis to mark 2 days ago, I think. I haven't done it yet, but I know he did great work on finding a different water source from which we can get a gravity feed with some complexity, rather than have less reliable solar water pumping and more expensive solar water pumping. So finding the cheapest solution. We've done a hydropower system with a mini grid in a village at one stage, which was a long time ago, 2009, 2010, but that didn't survive the huge cyclone Pam that came in 2015 there, unfortunately. But another organisation has stepped in just last year and rebuilt that hydropower system and incorporated some solar power that we were starting to put in to replace the hydro in that village. So they've got abundant energy now, thanks to that other organisation. So water supply, where there's an active volcano on the island, so we haven't done anything with that, to be honest, but we're sort of very conscious that there's huge amounts of energy there, but it's quite hard to deal with. It's very hot for a start, being able to convert that into some useful services at a village scale. So the sorts of things we're thinking about is perhaps food drying, so not really accessing the very high temperature lava, or that is there, it's visible in the volcano itself, but to the hot ground or perhaps hot water in the surrounding area. to transfer that into heated air to dehydrate food for preservation is something we'd like to do, but we haven't actually done it yet. We've done a solar dryer several years ago in Port Vila, and that seemed to work quite well, but it didn't sort of get picked up in the way that we'd hoped that it would. But then, we perhaps didn't push it as hard as we should have either. So all of these off-grid needs for basic services, very basic services of particularly lighting, water, and reliable food supply is something that we, it's in our mind, but we haven't actually done anything very much about that, to be honest. But and then of course there's the big context of the other motivation for renewable energy, and that's the greenhouse impact. And we're conscious of the part of that island that does have a grid is a diesel grid with some solar added on, but primarily diesel. And that country wants to be off diesel by 2030, and it's a big challenge in a short time. So we'd sort of like to get involved in that too, but yeah, we need quite a strong partnership with the Department of Energy or the operators of the facilities that we still need to build, really, I think. But yeah, so that's sort of the suite of. We've done one ram pump, which we did in January this year. So a ram pump is a very sweet technology. So it's unpowered. It gets the energy from the flow of water into it. So you can have a reservoir with a downward sloping pipe that goes to the ram pump. The ram pump has a valve that opens and closes. So it puts a pressure wave in the inlet pipe periodically, and that oscillates. And so that the pressure wave is like the water hammer that you have. If your washing machine in your house turns off the water very quickly, very suddenly, or you turn the tap off very quickly and the pipe's banging the wall, that energy, that's the pressure wave that's gone back from that sudden closure. So this one does that deliberately. You do it accidentally at home, but this does it deliberately, and it does it automatically. So it just opens, closes, without electricity. It's a very old technology, very underutilized technology, I think, but very, very sweet. I think I really love the sort of complex simplicity of it. It's very satisfying. So we bought one last year, and we installed it in January this year. And this was in a particular place where the water is down a deep valley, so it's about an 80-meter deep valley. It's dark down there, so solar water pump is very challenging. And this seemed to offer the possibility of getting it. So we did install it. It did work, but it didn't really. Our installation didn't make it really efficient enough. The materials that we use needs stiffness, so you don't lose energy in pipes flopping around. Like the pipes in your walls that bang. These pipes will move around too, but that dissipates the energy. So we want to keep it rigid. And ideally it should be a metal pipe, but that's out of our budget. And so it didn't pump up the 80 meters. We didn't pump high enough. Well, we didn't really expect that it would, but we thought we'd get a bit higher than we did. But that was sort of first trial, and then we're looking at how we might improve it. But then 2 cyclones came in March this year, and I forgot to ask those people to take it out of the valley. And so before the valley filled up with floodwater. So they had two category 4 or a category 3 and a category 4 in the same week, and yeah, it did a lot of damage. And I got people to look after some of my other projects and make them safe, but that one I forgot. So we're just looking at what we're going to do about that on our next visit, and perhaps we'll go back to going a solar pump with the solar further up the hill and long wires. Yes.
No, this is really interesting. Because it's nice to hear all the like projects and like applications of like your energy at the different places. And it makes me, I know you covered a bit about it as well, but it makes me think about what are some of the like engineering thought that you have to put into your solutions as well. Like you would want to use what is locally available, like potentially harnessing the volcano things, but you also want it to be simple. So using the rattling technology is like a good thing as well. I feel like, there's a lot of thought put into what kind of, makes the solution as well. And like, what application of what kind of energy like concept is put into the project as well, which is a interesting like way of thought. Like, is it just
Well, having a very small budget sort of drives a particular mode of thought. Actually, so you do things financially efficiently at the start. So you try and get your best bang for your buck. So that is very, very good motivator for doing things at the cheapest way that you can achieve the outcome, I think, for a start.
It makes you have to think very clever, I guess. But like, does that come with like experience then in terms of how to come up with like a good solution to apply in your projects and all?
Yeah, it does. I've been going to that island since I think 2007 was the first visit, and so I have both good, strong contacts there now and good support locally, and so I learn about what people need through contacts. So I don't. I guess if you look in a book for humanitarian engineering, it's you go and you spend a lot of time in the village, asking people, surveying people, finding out what they really need, to avoid this thing that does sometimes happen of people come in from developed countries with a bright idea and say, here, I've got the answer for you, and sort of tell people what they need. So we do try and avoid that, but it's sort of avoided for me, I guess, because there's people there who do that interface for me. So we work with a little organisation called Vanuatu Community Aid, and they do that interface for us, really, because they're immersed in the community and they know when they're talking to those people all the time, so they get to hear about. So we don't sort of have, we ourselves don't have to be in and out as often, and we can avoid those sort of delivery of what we want rather than what they wanted, usually. I have been a bit guilty of that too, to be honest, but primarily driven by budget. So, I just really didn't have options. I don't have all the options that I'd like to have. I learn from my students as well, and that's to help the other students. So it wasn't my idea to do that hydro that was done back in 2009. That was my student, who's now the CEO of a very big startup called 5B here in Sydney that's doing mounting systems for solar power, and very making big noises in the world. And he was my student who went there and to do a solar power lighting for a particular building that we'd been sort of asked to help with. In a little village called Umaki. It's a little village, as big as villages go, I guess, but it's sort of a regional centre with a secondary school and a primary school, secondary boarding school, but with what electricity services I had was all from a diesel generator, and the health clinic, the dispensary in that village was it was in this absolutely beautiful location. I mean, it's all beautiful around there, but it's that school is perhaps the most beautiful campus that I've ever seen of anywhere in the world. But the other side of the village is the health centre, and it's under the shade of a huge banyan tree. So this is a ficus family, a fig family, big, spreading, magnificent tree, and completely shading the building, of course. So, and it's just really, there's just so many trees. It's very hard to find a place where you can get sun access onto solar modules. To power, we did eventually move into the garden of the policeman who lives next door. He gave us the chance to to mount some solar in his garden. But then well, we really needed, there's a big avocado tree that puts significant shade even there, and we really need to remove a branch. And I said, oh yeah, all right, when we've harvested the avocados, they never cut that branch. Kept giving avocados, and I completely understand that, but it's quite hard. But anyway, at that time, when that student went, he said, oh well, firstly, another organisation had put solar there already. We're unknown to us. We still don't know who that was, but they put it in the shade, and it was not going to work well, and so he realised this, and he sort of did what I'd done the year before and scouted around for where can we put it instead, and it's really shady everywhere around there. There's just no clear space there, and so rather than give up, he noticed that there's a water tank with a pipe coming into it. Where's that pipe come from? It comes from 60 meters elevation from a river up in the wet jungle up above. That river always runs. It never runs dry. The water's always there. The pipe doesn't always stay in the river when the storms come up on the mountain, but there's always water in the river. So he thought, he did some calculations on the back of an envelope and said, we should do hydro here, not a on the existing water pipe that was already there, which again, a bit like the ram pump, it's a very sweet idea. So, so we did it. We did it and put it on there, and then his friend actually the following year did, who's also my student, he did a bigger hydro, but that was the one that got smashed up in Cyclone Pam in 2015. So, but it's back going again, as I said. So it's got a good outcome at the end. But that idea of doing hydro, so I didn't know anything about hydros. It wasn't what I was trained to do anything. But they were doing more of them, and that really came from the student. So. Watching how students do things as well, I learn as well as teach, and it's good. So.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously you've worked with a lot of engineers, and as a teacher yourself and a founder with a lot of this practical experience, what do you think makes a successful engineer? What are some key skills and qualities an engineer should have?
Well, I think I don't have any surprises here. I think it's it's aptitude and people who like seeing how things work and how things don't work, and pulling things apart and putting them together again, and wondering why you've got one screw left over when they should have gone. And I guess with a transition of society to more denser apartment living, people get less opportunity to do that, I think, and a lot of that aptitude is gone in recent years. I think it's gone into computer engineering, computer science, and software. I think because you can do that in an apartment, and you can do amazing things with it, and it's it's very well regarded in society. So it's a good area to be in. But the sort of more hands-on tinkering sort of opportunities, that's a bit harder for bit harder for kids to grow up knowing that they even have that desire or that interest, because they don't see their parents doing it, and so sometimes kids from country areas, they do get these opportunities, and it's just, yes, they come with more skills, I think, sometimes. Well, different skills anyway. More of those sort of skills. But yeah, obviously, if you have numerical interest and things but yeah, if you find yourself playing with lots of Lego and Meccano and writing your own software and things, and perhaps engineering's right for you.
Yeah, I guess, as like a final question, kind of linking to what you said, and I do wonder, do you have any advice for then students who are looking into renewable engineering as like a career path, besides telling them to get hands-on in things really early on?
Yeah, if they have that opportunity, but not everybody does, of course. But so I think our time has come in a way that when we started our school in 1999, we had big dreams of where solar and other renewables were going, and the need for them. And there's a lot more people with that same dream now, which is very exciting, and the a lot of the dream has come true in a way that it's now growing very, very fast. It's very accepted by community at last. There's been, there's still a significant resistance from the fossil fuel rump, but increasingly this is become accepted as the way our future energy supply must go. We've got to go so fast now because we've left it so late to get serious, and this solar, but along with wind and other renewables, and energy efficiency, so just reducing what we need is also very important. But yeah, if we're going to save our society, then there's lots of things that have to happen, but sort of technically, in energy-wise, what has to happen is what we do. So there's a hungry employers out there who need to grow fast. There's all sorts of reports around about the risk of failure to grow as we need to because of the lack of people. So those people are the people who are going to go through engineering and technical courses in the near future. So, either at TAFE level or at university level, we need you. Please come.
Wow, that's good. Yeah.
And Australia is very, very good at this. We've world ranking, the outstanding group of people. Solar energy wouldn't be where it is now without this group that I've been privileged to be a part of over the last decades. So it's very satisfying.
I reckon, that is a very important point, that we do really need people working in the renewable industry. And then I guess the other selling point is that they'll always be looking for people, so you have job security, I guess.
I think we can it's gone through some peaks and troughs. So sometimes you bring lots of students in a peak, and then there's a trough when they graduate, and this is awkward. I don't think we're going to have I think we have ripples now on an upward trend. So I think there's always going to be for foreseeable future, there'll be a big demand for people in this business, I think. So welcome, students.
Yeah, that's good news. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, that's most of the questions we have for you today. And I think I learned quite a lot just by understanding the projects you do, as well as even understanding when you were explaining the science of it all and the technical things. That was really interesting, because it's actually simple, but they have a very innovative twist, implementation to it as well, which I think is really cool. But yeah, thank you again for taking the time to chat to us today. I think it was definitely very insightful, and very interested to see how the rest of the projects go in the future, and the rest of the innovations that are to come as well. Yeah, thank you.
You very much. It's been my pleasure, and all power to EWB too. You do a great job as well.
Thank you very much.
You do.
Cool.
Thank you. Bye for now.